Not everything that you see in movies and TV is fictional. A lot of it may seem extraordinary, too far-fetched to be real, but every idea has its roots in reality. Today, we sift through the archives of one of these roots, the genesis of horror's most iconic entities, zombies. Since the 1960s, zombies have been the dominant force of the horror genre, at the apex of pop culture. Movies, TV shows, books, comics, theme park rides, video games, you name a medium, zombies have dominated it. But locked behind the Foundation's highest classifications is the existence of an entity that raises the dead with a newfound hunger for human flesh. An entity that, should it ever break containment, would collapse society under the weight of its sadistic primal urges. For over 40 years now, the Foundation has been priming the brains of the masses for such an eventuality through zombie culture, subliminally preparing the populace to combat this virus and its side effects should it ever reach the surface. But I hope for all of our sakes that such an outbreak remains a work of fiction and nothing more. This is the horror of SCP-008, the zombie virus. SCP-008 was one of the first things ever contained by the Foundation. With it being a Euclid-class entity, however, it has proven highly unreliable to contain. SCP-008 is a complex prion, which is an abnormal pathogenic agent that's typically found in the brain that causes brain damage and a litany of other symptoms depending on the prion. Samples of the 008 prion in particular are stored in each of the known G2 sites, which are presumed to be sites that specialize in biohazardous entities, and those with particular virality. Research into SCP-008 is highly classified and is aimed primarily at preventing research which could lead to its synthesis in the distant future, rather than trying to figure out how to cure or immunize against it. The prion bears 100% infectiousness, 100% lethality, transmission via exposed mucous membranes and all bodily fluids, but thankfully, as of now, no known airborne or waterborne properties. The symptoms of SCP-008 infection manifest within 3 hours of exposure and rapidly worsen from there on out. The infection process begins with flu-like symptoms and a high fever, worsening into severe dementia later on. Roughly 20 hours after the flu symptoms appear and roughly 12 hours after noticeable dementia, the victim falls into a coma, which is considered the onset of death. During this coma, sporadic cellular necrosis begins, rotting the tissue, flesh, muscles, and organs until they resemble the effects of gangrene. However, not all tissue is necrosed. Some remains intact. The most extraordinary symptom of 008, however, is the reanimation of the prion's host following this coma. Despite the extended period of what appears to be, by all scientific metrics, death, and as a byproduct, total organ failure, the host, animal or human, reawakens, officially classified as undead, with a primal hunger for human flesh. The flesh that wasn't necrosed not only remains intact upon reanimation, but appears to become more resilient. The red blood cells see greatly increased oxygen capacity, slowing down blood flow and increasing muscle endurance and strength. Nervous and muscular systems remain intact and mostly undamaged by the period of organ failure during the coma. Metabolism significantly decreases, allowing 008 infected hosts to survive for over 10 years without any form of nutrition, and the blood becomes highly viscous, resulting in grossly minimized blood flow from gunshots, punctures, and any kind of slashing injuries. In short, the prion's ability to induce abnormal folding of specific cellular proteins in the brain drastically increases the resilience of a host's internal organs and blood flow, which is the opposite of what most would expect given the period of organ failure and cell necrosis. It doesn't make sense. But the prion alters a host's composition in more ways than just biologically. Distinct behavioral changes have also been observed. Conditioned behavior from when the host was uninfected, motor controls, and instinctive behavioral mechanisms appear to be severely damaged, and cognitive abilities are dumbed down and appear more erratic, likely due to the brain damage that the prion has caused. Infected animals, in particular, suffer extreme brain necrosis, rendering them inactive. However, the same absolutely cannot be said about infected humans. Infected humans appear able to adapt to the damage that the nervous system has endured, and although said damage does limit them to basic physical activities, they're able to stand up, balance on both legs, walk, crawl, grab, but most importantly, bite. As was previously mentioned, they gain a primal hunger for human flesh and will energetically move towards sights, sounds, and any smells they associate with living humans. If physical contact is made, the infected will attempt to bite and ingest the living human. Given the reanimated, newfound host's resilience, the only ways to neutralize them that we know of at least right now are with significant cranial trauma, fire or extreme heat, and irradiation. Anything else doesn't seem to have an effect. Because of SCP-008's extreme virality, any samples of the virus have been deemed Class 5 extreme biological hazards. For the record, the current highest biosafety level that is at least public is Level 4, which covers agents such as the Ebola virus, monkeypox, the 1918 influenza virus, and even the Marburg virus. The existence of Biosafety Level 5 and the threat that it incorporates is highly classified and unknown to the general public. Given that strains and samples of 008 are stored at G2 sites in multiple different countries, should political or military action occur in one of those countries that could lead to the declassification and dismantling of its G2 site, incineration and irradiation measures are immediately deployed to destroy any 008 samples and prevent them from falling into the wrong hands or just spreading on their own. Should a power failure occur at any G2 site, or should communications from its operatives or any outside channels cease for more than 8 hours, then the same containment procedures are enacted and the samples are destroyed. It is imperative that all G2 sites uphold their harsh but unfortunately necessary policy of not preparing an evacuation of any site staff should a containment breach occur with 008. In the unlikely event of a containment breach, the same prior containment procedures are immediately deployed regardless of staff presence. Unfortunately, this is a necessary loss to ensure that 008 does not break containment and be allowed to spread. All operatives who leave a 008 research facility must endure 4 months of unbroken quarantine before reintegrating with the populace. Now, as previously mentioned, valuable research resources are not being spent trying to cure or immunize against SCP-008, but rather they're being spent to try and prevent it from being synthesized. Now, the reason for this is the prion's supposed origin. There is strong evidence to suggest that this thing did not form naturally on Earth. Were it a naturally occurring entity, then there'd be some documented cases of it, or any of its variants, displacing much of our planet's ecosystems. Something this easily transmissible and noticeable cannot go unnoticed for hundreds or thousands of years. Were it a naturally occurring thing, we would have seen outbreaks of the prion before, and we haven't. In 1959, a short collaborative effort with the USSR to locate G2 sites and destroy SCP-008 was negotiated following the prion's discovery. However, the status of SCP-008 in Russian custody since this collaboration ended is unknown. Whatever or whoever the origin of 008 may pertain to, whether it was created to act as a bioweapon or came to Earth via some meteorite or radiation from a space probe, it's clear that there are clandestine undertones to its existence. Now, interestingly, Foundation researchers have accidentally discovered a way to create SCP-008 in a previously uninfected host's brain. Not through the use of anything biological and not through any synthesization means, but via a strange mechanical contraption, SCP-914. SCP-914 is a large clockwork device comprised of screwdrives, belts, pulleys, gears, springs, and other miscellaneous clockwork. It's an incredibly complex device with over 8 million moving parts, entirely mechanical with no electronics. It has 2 booths connected via copper tubes to the main body of the device, one booth labelled intake and the other labelled output, and between the two is a copper panel with a large knob that can be turned to 5 different options: rough, coarse, 1-to-1, fine, and very fine. Once an object is put in 914's intake booth, the knob turned to a desired setting and activated, the device appears to process and refine the object, regardless of what it is, before having it appear in the output booth. Now, a large number of tests have been conducted with the SCP-914 device with varying results. One particularly interesting and, granted, insidious test was conducted by Dr. Grangan, Test 914-0103, in which 5 adult male cadavers were put through 914 on each of its settings. The body put through on rough came out the other end a pile of separated human remains. The coarse body had its skin, nervous system, digestive system, and circulatory system all removed without any tissue damage via some sort of cutting tool. The 1-to-1 body went in a Caucasian male cadaver and came out the other end an Asian male cadaver. The body on very fine came out as green slime, but what was particularly interesting and that pertains to today's document, also very worrying, was what happened to the 4th body that was put through on the fine setting. It appeared in the output booth suddenly infected with SCP-008. Body was immediately incinerated, but somehow this mechanical device had managed to create the 008 prion from nothing and infect a subject with it. Because of this, the previously assumed safe SCP-914 must be kept highly classified and highly locked down. However, despite what little we know about the origins of SCP-008, all hope is not lost, at least just yet. More by luck than judgment, a cure for 008 has been found by the Foundation, SCP-500. Now, SCP-500 is a small plastic can that contains mysterious pills which, when taken orally, cure a subject of literally any disease within 2 hours, 008 included. In a test with SCP-500, various Class D personnel were infected with SCP-008 and then administered the pill at various stages of infection, and it was observed that even somehow in the final stages of 008, when the host is fully zombified, for lack of a better word, the pill allowed them to accomplish a full recovery. That said, even though they do appear normal, the subject is still technically undead, given that they've undergone the death-causing coma. Now, whether they're able to live normally after taking the pill and experiencing a recovery is unknown. However, as of this test, only 57 of these pills remain, and all attempts to synthesize more have unfortunately failed. Our only hope now is that the remaining G2 sites never suffer catastrophic failure, and that if the Russians are still in possession of samples, they never choose to weaponize them. Theoretically speaking, SCP-008 is the ultimate bioweapon. In the 57 years since its discovery, the world has been tremendously lucky to never experience an outbreak, because if this thing ever got out, well, it doesn't even bear thinking about. And that is the horror of SCP-008, the zombie virus. I wanted to do something real traditional this Halloween, and it doesn't get any more traditional in horror than good old-fashioned zombies. Whether it's Resident Evil, Call of Duty, the Romeroverse, Halo, SCP, or anything else, zombies are the apex of horror to me, and so it only felt right to finally cover SCP-008 for a Halloween special. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you see anybody out there with a particularly aggressive prion disease, maybe avoid them and maybe report them to the Foundation. Just an idea. So with that said, if you guys did enjoy the video, then I'd appreciate a like and a sub, of course. And with that said, let's round another SCP video out there. I want to give a huge thank you to all of my amazing patrons for the continued support over there as per usual. And thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Happy Halloween. It really is the best holiday of the year. You can't convince me otherwise. Halloween, spooky season is objectively the best time of year. Better than Christmas, better than summer, better than anything else. Halloween stays goated. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Happy Halloween, and I'll catch you all in the next one.